you gotta kind of find it a little suspicious why Brian Wicke won't talk about Jeff Watney and my daughter's mother, Chrissy Watney, they're married, about them guys living together in South St. Paul. You won't hear him speak about it or talk about it or say anything about that that's what my issues or concerns are. You won't hear him speak it or talk about that stuff at all. Now, why won't he? Well, what if he does? What if he did? And what if he did look into it? And what if he did turn around and contact the probation officer and said, hey, Mr. Becker reached out to me and said, hey, this is what's going on. He gave me this documentation, court orders. Is there an explanation of this? What's the probation officer going to say? Terry Olson, which is his probation officer at the time, while they're living in South St. Paul. Let me clarify, Terry Olson, 100% fact, knew they were living together. There was no duplex or 101 or 103, it was separate, blah, blah, blah. Terry Olson, numerous times, went there and, I had to do her checkups and straight up told them, you guys are not supposed to be living together. Did nothing about it. Did nothing about it. Straight fact. So Brian Wicke calls the PO and says, hey, Mr. Becker brought this to my attention. PO is going to be like, well, we're separate units. They weren't living together, and Jess had approval to be living there, and Jess had approval to have supervised contact with Matt's daughter. Okay, I'll give you this one. I'll say, okay, sure, it was separate units. Okay, I'll give you that one, and not even argue that point. But what happens when a convicted child molester that's on probation, and his probation officer knows that he's going to have contact with the minor child? What is that probation officer supposed to do? Besides give him a helping hand and open the door for him? No. He's supposed to do a mandate report with child protection. When a probation officer knows one of their clients has restrictions not to be around children, they're supposed to notify child protection and do an assessment to see what the risk is of him being around that child. They never did it. They admitted it in 2008 when they filed papers for him to try and get unsupervised contact with my daughter. They wrote in there. The PO wrote a letter to the judge during that court date and said, hey, if you're changing that court order, I just want it to be written up that during PO's approval, which it was still never written up, approval by PO, that Jeff would have to submit to a lie detector test at PO's request. Not only that they'd have to go through some climb program with whatever to teach my kid good touch, bad touch, to see where she's at, to see if she'd understand, what is positive or negative. Like, I don't even want to think about my kid having to go through any of that kind of crap. Period. Not like they ever did that, or assessed it, or even did a child mandate report. So right when POs knew that their client was going to have contact with a minor and he's got restrictions not to be around children, they're supposed to do a child mandate report with child protection. Child protection is supposed to come in, and when child protection does their mandate report, guess what they do? Who's the father of the kid? Does the father got joint legal rights? Yeah, he does. Well, we're going to have to contact him and make sure he's aware of this, and he's approving, he approves of this, and, we need his okay before we allow any of that. Go back to my older videos and listen to the conversation I had with Terry Olson and then Mark Mell, which is Terry Olson's supervisor. They busted themselves out not knowing it was being recorded. In their own words, busted themselves out. But, well, they're only going to say it once and they're never going to hear about that conversation again and whatever, right? Like, who's ever going to believe me if I go and say something? Don't take my word for it, take theirs. Mark Mell, the probation officer supervisor, clearly everything he said to me, and I told him, oh, wait a minute, you better look into that because I'm telling you. Tells me all this stuff that had never been approved, and yep, he would have been in violation, and I'm showing him, and I'm showing him, and I'm showing him. What does he do? Ignores me for like 3 months. Straight up ignores me for like 3 months. Solid fact that he ignores me for 3 months, because his Jess Watney's daughter reaches out to me on Facebook and gives me this big old speech and just chews into me, which I find it kind of alarming that this guy's such a righteous dad and so concerned about being able to protect his family from me, to protect my daughter from me. He's such a good guy and stuff, that he's got to have his daughter get dragged through all this stuff, knowing what he did to her. I mean, just imagine that. I feel bad for that. And I don't feel good at all having anything whatsoever having that brought into any of this, but I was getting nowhere. Every person I was supposed to deal with, it was just slamming the door in games. I mean, this is all solid fact. I mean, I'd have a better chance getting you to believe that I'm Elvis than to get you to believe this story if I didn't have any fact to back all this up. So, people can say, oh no, that was all proved. Well, really? Where's any court order saying any of that was approved, period? There is no court order. This court orders were never changed until apparently in 2018 when they moved from South St. Paul to Burnsville. Burnsville, where he's got to park in his backyard, yeah. You know, a child molester that's got no contact with children, restrictions still to this day, on probation until 2029. Be able to move to Burnsville to park in his backyard. Hey, we'll put, you know. So if they would have done their mandated report when they went and purchased this duplex together, they're supposed to notify the South St. Paul police because that's what child protection is supposed to do, and the probation officer is supposed to do to let them know, hey, you got a chomo living in your area and you got a kid under the same roof. Now, when they're supposed to do a mandated report now, if a convicted child molester who's got restrictions on probation is living in a place, the same building, same structure, which is, it's the same building, same structure if you want to go that route, still supposed to do a mandated report. There was never ever no mandated report done. How about back in 2005 when a PO had to sign off for allegedly Chrissy to do a 2-hour safety center, or to do a 2-hour safety course to be a supervised person, which had to be renewed annually. Annually means every year, a 2-hour class, just to let you know, what to do or what to look out for, or, well, you see a guy touching a little young kid, I think you know what to do and what to look out for, right? I mean, you don't got to go to take no 2-hour class to do that, but I guess some ignorant people do, and they have to pay for it. So the PO had to write off and sign on that for Chrissy to do a 2-hour little class in 2005, okay? For her to become a supervised person to allow this pedophile around her minor child, my minor child, right then and there, that PO was aware of it right then and there by signing that paper, letting her do this 2-hour class through, whatever it is. I did a video on it showing all that too. So right then there in 2005, they should have done a mandated report. Endless amount of times over and over and over and over when things were brought up and addressed in certain situations during out his whole probation, they were supposed to do a mandated report. Every step of the way when something was going on, when he was having contact, when all, yeah. Now honestly, do I believe that she actually did this 2-hour class back in 2005? No, I think they probably wrote up them papers, but whatever. We'll go with that, and I'll give them that one and not argue that. Okay, that's annually. That's something that's supposed to be renewed annually, every year. So again, PO was not doing their job, right? But PO wasn't doing their job when they signed off on it and didn't do no mandated report at that point. So then it goes right back to, why won't Brian Wicke do anything about it? Call the PO and say, hey, Mr. Becker brought this to my attention, and that's the road I would have went down. Oh shit. Well, Brian Wicke ain't gonna do all that. No way, because then it's like, oh shit, this is gonna open a big old can of worms. We better start covering some stuff up. So after going through all this, Mark Mel and Terry Olson ignored me for 3 months. Behind my back, not even knowing that period, they're filing papers in Scott County trying to get Jeff Watney off probation early. Because if he was off probation, what can they do? Nothing. What could I do? Nothing. It'd be just, fuck you, Matt. Yeah, solid fact. In a straight recorded conversation with Mark Mel, he straight up admits, yes, we did file papers after you contacted us. But it would have had nothing to do ever about you reaching out, contacting us, and your concerns. We would never do that under them temps. I don't know. Add all the other stuff up, it kind of just makes sense. Yeah, that's probably what you just did right off the bat. The first thing you guys did when I found out, you started looking into it and you realized the first thing you need to do, shit, we better get them off probation early. Solid fact. Solid fact.